What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we have a very special reaction. IGN just did a Dead Space Remake final preview, a final look at the game before it launches this week. If you're watching this video, the time of recording this, we are less than 7 days from one of my favorite games of all time. Now, as I've said before, if you watch my previous videos, I'm very excited about a number of games that drop out this year. We're talking Hogwarts Legacy, we're talking Resident Evil Remake and Resident Evil 4 Remake, and so many others. But of that list, Dead Space Remake is definitely top 3 for me. I played this game back in 2008. It is one of the games that got me into the horror genre outside of Resident Evil. And ever since then, I've been waiting for them to do a remake for this game. And it's finally happening. You can imagine how excited this makes me, and even more excited to check out this final preview. I'm really looking forward to seeing what else we can find out about this game as we kind of just wait out the days and the number of sleeps that remain before we can jump into this experience together. So yeah, without further ado, let's check out the trailer. Let me know what you guys think down below. Are you going to be checking this game out on day one, or are you going to wait on it? I definitely will be playing it and doing a full playthrough, so be sure to check out my YouTube later on this week, as I will be dropping episodes daily, hopefully, until we finish it. And so yeah, I'm really excited sharing this experience with you. When you see those videos, any support you can drop on them really does mean the world. And without further ado, let's check out this final preview for Dead Space Remake. Now, to say I'm excited about this game would be an understatement.
A few days ahead of visiting EA Motive for our Dead Space focused IGN first, I played the original game for the first time since 2008. I only intended to play the first hour or so, but 7 hours later, I found myself still battling through the rusted corpse of the USG Ishimura.
Dude, I can't wait to take out
Dead Space was
Necromorphs.
A modern classic, but I was surprised just how well it stood up all these years later. And so I headed to meet the developers with a slightly cynical mindset. What was the point of remaking something that remains so brilliant? After playing the same 7 hours of the remake, I think I may have been convinced. In many ways, Dead Space is a purist's remake. I'd estimate that around 85% of what I experienced was identical to the original game, just with vastly superior visuals.
Dude, that's so cool!
But it's the other 15% that has me quietly wondering, could this remake genuinely be better than its progenitor?
I don't know if that's possible, but even if it's close to the original, I will be happy. Like, remakes are risky, but if they're done right, man, they can just reinvigorate your love for a franchise.
Many of these changes are gameplay improvements, several of which are drawn directly from Dead Space 2. The zero-gravity sequences now allow you to move freely in all directions,
that's pretty
rather
cool,
than hop from surface to surface.
Because that didn't get introduced to Dead Space 2.
Sense of freedom, but segments redesigned around this ability are notably more interesting than their original counterpart. The centrifuge generator puzzle in Chapter 3 is now a genuine spectacle, while the ADS cannon repair job has been completely changed to be a dangerous spacewalk that amps up the tension.
Yo, look at those environments, though.
Syncing targeting system.
The 2011 sequel's influence
can be
found
tough.
in the weapons too, which can now be fitted with a variety of special upgrades that alter their function. The plasma cutter, for instance, can be modded with an extended magazine and the ability to set foes alight for damage over time. The Ripper, meanwhile, can fire blades that ricochet around the room, allowing for trick shots.
Dude, that's so sick.
Such modifications are found
I'm gonna get highlight
around the
reels.
ship, and so they act as encouragement to explore every room and store cupboard. But thanks to a new security clearance system, you're initially locked out of many side locations you discover. As the story progresses, you're granted increasing levels of clearance, and so you can then backtrack through the now seamless spaceship to open doors that were once forbidden.
Dude,
this
I love
interconnected
that.
design and backtracking turns the Ishimura into something closer to the Talos 1 station from Prey, a huge structure that feels like a genuine place rather than a series of video game levels.
That's going to be really cool.
Direction, but I've yet to
giving
see
you a chance
exactly
to re-explore
how well
some of
it's
these
used
areas
across the full campaign. My hope is that Motive has smartly weaved backtracking into the main missions and the newly added side quests to allow for organic revisits of prior areas, rather than making backtracking a segregated chore.
I hope we get to see like respawned enemies and stuff. I'd hate to go through an area and just kind of be running endlessly through areas that are empty.
Regardless of if you're backtracking or making forward progress, Dead Space is full of horrifying necromorphs that threaten to rip you limb from limb. Much has already been made of the new peeling system that rips the skin, fat and muscle layers away from enemies with each new wound. But there's more to this grotesque idea than just visceral visuals.
That weapon kind of
looked
new.
Much like how protagonist Isaac Clarke has a health bar built directly into his suit, the necromorphs' own bodies are now a visual representation of their health. This is never more obvious than when using the Force Gun. a weapon that has been completely overhauled for the remake. What was once simply a pushback weapon now rips the flesh off enemies with a thunderous blast.
Oh, dude, the force gun will actually be
The
useful.
stripped down necromorphs can then be finished off with a more conventional weapon.
I remember
Their
just
exposed
leaving it in
bones
my
ready
vault.
to be snapped with just a round or two. Talking of weapons, each one of Isaac's lethally repurposed tools has been redesigned to encourage a new level of strategy. Dismemberment is still the main aim of every skirmish, but
Dude,
the
that weapon
flamethrower's
looks
new
sick.
alternate fire creates a wall of searing flame that can cordon off areas and manage crowds, while the pulse rifle's new proximity mine works as both a trap and a makeshift grenade launcher. These are small changes, but I found the new secondary abilities to be much more useful than those in the original game.
I would
and
agree.
They soon became a regular part of my combat routine.
There were certain
My
weapons that
favourite
I
change
just
I've
did
seen so
not
far,
use
though,
because
are the
they were
circuit breakers.
pretty
These occasional
useless.
puzzles require you to reroute power to different machines, typically to open up locked doors. Each breaker box has a limited number of fuses though, and so powering up a door is done at the expense of powering down something else. In an early example, this involved turning off an elevator I no longer needed, but in Chapter 3 I was confronted with a much more intriguing sacrifice. To power up a refuel station, I had to divert energy away from either the engineering deck's lights or life support systems. It was a choice. Should I stumble onwards in pitch darkness and risk being ambushed by unseen threats, or navigate well-lit corridors while my air supply rapidly ran dry? It's a smart way to combine challenge with player choice.
Bro, that
and I
sounds
hope this example
terrible.
is the first of many fiendish scenarios rather than a one-off occurrence.
I love that it gives you kind of those risk versus reward scenarios. You get to choose how you suffer, you know? I would definitely take the lights any day, though.
Graphics aside, the most notable change right from minute 1 is the alterations to the script and storytelling. Once silent protagonist Isaac can now speak, and while I do think this is largely unnecessary, he thankfully hasn't been turned into an overly chatty Sony character. Rather than quipping at everything, Isaac's ability to respond anchors him into the horrifying situation in a realistic manner.
Yoshimura's overrun with... they're fucking monsters.
Gunnar Wright,
Yeah,
the
I don't
voice
think he
actor who brought
talked
Isaac's
until
life in the
Dead Space
sequels,
2, and
reprises
he had
the
very
role.
little
and so
dialogue.
once again, there's the sense that elements of Dead Space 2 are being retrofitted into the original. Isaac's new scripting is pretty good, but the best changes have been made to Kendra Daniels. Once an incredibly thorny character, she's been transformed into a much more empathetic and friendly colleague for Isaac. And for anyone who knows the final direction of Dead Space's story, I think Daniel's revised personality will work much better with her character arc, provided,
That's gonna be
of
interesting
course,
to
the
see.
story's main plot beats remain intact. Talking of the story's pathway, the Church of Unitology, a religious sect and a major player in the Dead Space universe, is introduced much earlier in this remake and in a far more organic
marker.
manner. These characters know the Church's reputation and casually discuss it, even before they are aware that it will change their lives forever. It's an approach I really appreciate, and I think the eventual plot reveals will be much more meaningful because of it.
But if they found this on some alien planet, what does that mean?
That Unitology's onto something?
Unitology's full of shit.
Motive has made many smart changes to Dead Space, but it never shakes things up to the point of being unrecognizable. The result, at least across the first several chapters, is something that feels similar in philosophy to a director's cut, albeit a
So they're
director's
like
cut that's completely
smart
refilmed on
changes
brand
that have been
sets.
made.
This experience appears largely the same as the 2008 original, but honed and polished to a beautiful, gory finish.
That is, dude, that
As
game
such,
looks gorgeous.
This remake will likely work best for brand new players or the most dedicated Dead Space fans.
I heard something up there. Something big. Watch your back.
As someone who loves the original game, I found what I played an absolute thrill. But for less invested fans, the value is of a more questionable quantity, since even with the changes, this is an incredibly similar experience. As such, I don't think Dead Space will be as essential and transformative as the Resident Evil 2 remake was. As the best possible way to play this landmark survival horror though, I have near enough no doubt that Dead Space will succeed in that mission.
I think if you've never played this before, you definitely should.
For more from the Dead Space remake, check out the first 18 minutes of the
And
game.
even if you have
and how
played it
Isaac's
before,
suit was redesigned.
I definitely think you should
And for
play
everything
this.
else, stick with IGN.
All right, guys. Well, there it is. We got a final preview of the Dead Space Remake, a game that, like I said before, I'm really excited about. I'm going to post the original link to the IGN video down in the pin or in the comment section. So if you guys want to check it out, I highly recommend doing so. I think there's a lot more detail in here than what they even had talked about, and they talk about a lot, but it was enough to get me excited for this experience. And I think, you know, tagging on to what he said at the very end, that they're, you know, it's very similar to the original. I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. I think that that is really at its core the point of a remake. It's really for, it's an opportunity, I think, for new fans who never experienced it to jump into a game that, if they were to try to go back and play now, might seem a little dated in comparison to some of the games that they're used to playing, right? And so a remake gives an opportunity to bring new life, change mechanics, provide a much richer world than what was originally out there. At the time that this game came out in 2008, there was a lot to appreciate, and at the time it was one of the best looking games out there. Now, hard to believe that that's the case now. You know, we're looking at 12 plus years later, but at the time this game had peak graphics. And so it's going to be really cool to revisit a game in really a very strong fresh coat of paint, and I think that in itself provides enough reason to play it. I thought the gameplay and the horror aspects of it were some of the strongest out there of the horror genre. It's what got me into this series. And I felt, you know, I'm playing my original playthrough, I felt on edge. I felt scared. I felt nervous with this game in a way that very few horror games had really done for me in the past. So, you know, to this day, Dead Space, you know, it represents to me the benchmark of what a great horror story is. Now, I'm really excited to see some of the narrative changes that they've decided to make and how that kind of fits with creating a more relatable story. Because, and you know, talking about some of the characters that existed before, I will agree with what they said in this video, that some of the characters did seem a little thorny, did seem a little one-dimensional. So I'm excited to see how changing kind of their inflections and how they say certain things and what they say, how that makes them a bit more likable and relatable to Isaac Clarke's story overall. Overall, guys, I am very excited for this game. One of the things I love so much about it when it first came out was it was one of the first games I'd played, if not one of the first games to really come out that did the whole no HUD thing. It wasn't something that existed in a lot of games prior to Dead Space. I'm not saying Dead Space was the first one. It was the first one I experienced to have kind of a no HUD thing, but it was one of the first games I can remember playing that really emphasized immersion and allowing you to really feel like you're in this world, that you're on the USS Ishimura, and that you are really, you know, surviving and trying to, you know, fighting for your life, if you will. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see that brought back in new details, some of the changes to the weapons, some of the changes to the environments and the characters and the narrative. A lot of things that I think are going to make this a really memorable remake. Now, will it be the best remake out there? I don't know. I'm a little biased, obviously, because this is one of my favorite games of all time. And so I think it's going to be a wait and see. But if you've never played this game before, I definitely highly recommend it. I think it's going to be a great one if you enjoy the horror genre and you enjoy a good story and a game that's has deep immersion, great weapons, and a pretty strong story. I think Dead Space is going to be a great one. I'm really excited to play this. And if you're someone like myself who's already played it before, I still think it's going to be worth the price of admission. And so that's just me. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Are you going to be checking out Dead Space Remake? I will be playing this game, doing a full playthrough. I don't think I'm going to do it live. I'm going to do it episodically because I really want a chance to fully immerse myself without minimal distractions. And so if you guys do see this, it would, you know, and you see these videos when I start posting the parts, it would really mean the world to me if you guys drop a like on them or a comment. Really just comment anything or like the video. Anything really helps. It's a series that I really want to see do well, and yeah, so I would love any support that you guys can provide on that. I'll try to get those videos up to you guys as soon as possible. But that's all for me. I'm really excited about this. I just wanted to share this final preview with you guys because it is a game that I'm looking forward to, and so, you know, I wanted to share that hype with someone. So if you're hyped for it as well, if you're looking forward to it, let me know down in the comment section below. Drop a like on this video. Subscribe if you're new here. We're going to have a lot more Dead Space content coming up soon, as well as Hogwarts Legacy in the month of February. So there's a lot of content on the way just for you. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. My name is That Guy Rye, and I will see you in the next video.